And if everything went well, we should be live now. Welcome everyone to another episode of Everything Outside Code. And today I have Jayen Harrill with me. Jayen is the head of marketing at Covalent. And on this podcast, at least this stream, we're going to talk about marketing strategies, what could go wrong, what's great. And just before we kick this stream off, I was talking to Jayen about the difference between marketing within the crypto space as against traditional marketing and what the differences could look like. I know the crypto space is very community heavy and event driven. So I'm curious to learn all about that. And if you stick around, you should learn all about that as well. On these streams in general, everything outside code, we talk about the hard bits of product development, or at least getting a product to market. So everything outside actually writing code. And I'm excited for today's episode. So I'm going to go straight to the person of the moment, Jan. Could you introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and yeah, a bit about your background?
Sure. My name is Jean Harrill. I work at Covalent. I'm an advisor for a couple projects as well. I've been in the crypto space since 2012, and I've been marketing for like 10 years. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here and just talk about all things marketing.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jan, for making it out here. Um, I'm super curious. Looking at your bio from LinkedIn, you talked about being a technical marketer. What does that
Yeah.
mean? And how'd you get there?
Yeah, so technical marketer, because I've always been interested in like the base technology and how it works. I'm not a developer, but with blockchain, I'm really interested in say the consensus algorithm and how it works. I work with projects, and I work with their lead engineers, and I ask them questions, and I get to the heart of what is the bare metal of what is being built. What is bare metal? What is actually happening? How is it working? What is it like? Can I get a full picture of it? Um, because a lot of times engineers don't necessarily know how to like really share what that means, and they think they have something interesting, but they don't know how to express that. So I get to the heart of that. Then I chart my way through finding the waypoints all the way up until you're at a user touch point and what it means to the user, and finding that story and finding that narrative. But it's about finding the go-to-market strategy that is the most levered, that expresses correctly and accurately what this technology does and how it can help people and why you should care about it. And if I can express that in something as short as 4 words, then I've done my job. Um, because if you can do that, then you can write copy, you can write blogs, you can do all sorts of stuff. You can really focus on why it's interesting. And so I call
Mm.
myself a technical marketer because um, I don't just like market what's given to me. I I have to dig in and understand the why it's important and why it's interesting, and then I market that. Um, and Working with engineers, even though I'm not an engineer myself, I'm not a developer myself, takes a certain finesse. And so that's kind of where I got to. I consider myself a technical marketer.
Yeah, that's amazing. I do know a lot of marketers struggle with understanding what engineers, what they say. And when you typically talk to an engineer, they say what's in their minds, what they're working on, what they're very passionate about, and they're usually very technical about it. How did you go from, or when they share these, how do you parse all this information? I'm sure there are a lot of technical terms in there, um, but those that they've probably coined up while developing while developing the product. So how are you able to parse these technical terms? Do you ask for like even further explanation? Do you have to go do like some digging yourself, or do you passively just get immersed in all these like terms and the product in general and just figure it out along the way? How does
So
that
I
work?
so a lot of times they're terms I already know. If it's a term that I'm not familiar with, I write it down and I do some research, because that means I need to have a definition to it in the copy that I write. But I ask questions. And I keep asking questions. And I'm typically good at asking the correct questions. And I try to listen to what they're saying and repeat it back to them in the way that I understand it. Um, and so, without going too deep into what that necessarily means, because everyone has their own way of doing that, um, I make sure to understand uh, you know, what it all means, because yes, there are a lot of terms, and you need to understand these terms and and I make sure that the engineer doesn't dumb it down. They don't. One of the things about crypto is, unlike other industries, is it's bottom up. It never came
Hmm.
from academia. It never came from industry. It didn't come from government. It came from bottom up, from hackers. And so the communication style has always been, this is what it is. It has been very forthright with research and everything. And so it's all very public, rather than, say, AI, which is all behind research walls. And then the researchers just kind of like have a hand wavy say it way of explaining AI. And so marketers just use that, but they don't actually understand what a multi-agent system is, what a multi-dimensional um, a fractal database is. Like, they don't understand these core concepts of actually what makes AI AI. And in crypto, you have to understand these core concepts. So I
Hmm.
ask a lot of questions. And when I don't understand a particular, or I'm having trouble with a particular word, that means that if I'm the core audience, then I need to provide definition for that in my copy. Um,
Yeah.
and so I do that, and then I dig in, and I know when I've gone deep enough, or when I need to go deeper for certain topics, or I need to stay more high level. But that's sort of an experience thing.
Yeah, that's great. But what I hear is, at least at the bare minimum, you should be talking to the developers and listening to them, talking to them at least a lot, and just asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, for sure, and
Yeah.
especially researchers, because I think researchers want to, or have the expectation that other people are not at their level, when actually
Hmm.
they don't need to be at their level, but they want to understand at enough at their level, so that they can have these kinds of conversations. Um, uh, and so asking the correct questions is how you get there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, one of the topics of this stream today is marketing strategy, and I'm very curious how that looks like in the crypto space, right? So, what would you say are the core components of a marketing strategy? So, someone's started a crypto project, they build a product actually, and they want to go to market. How do they get started with a marketing strategy?
Well, it's important to know crypto first of all. Um, just like, hey, we're going to do a crypto project and we're going to go put it out there and we're going to market, and that's fine. But then you hit a wall where you make a mistake, you make a engineering mistake, because you don't quite understand the ethos, or you don't quite understand the why people are in the space to begin with. Maybe you didn't read the Bitcoin technical paper, or you don't understand how Ethereum works, but you want to do a crypto project, and so you make something, and it's not decentralized, and you don't understand why that matters. So make avoiding those mistakes is critical, first of all. So you need to be in the space. Um, and that helps by actually engaging uh, with folks that have been in the space for a long time. I myself have been in the space a long time, and I do offer advisory for projects. So if you are a project that's looking for some help, I can absolutely help out. Just DM me, because you need to have those OGs that actually know what they're talking about and take you down the correct direction. But in general terms, well, there's a lot of events. Crypto is a global phenomenon. The venture capital is global. The engineering is global. The research is global. The audience is global. The liquidity is global, um, and everything. And these networks are global. The infrastructure itself is global. And so you have events that happen in Singapore, you have events that happen in Dubai, New York, Miami, San Francisco, Berlin, London, um, Paris. These are some of the more common places where there's going to be an event in Bangkok. Um, and there's events all over the calendar year. And so you need to be competitive in making your side events for that. And you need to be prepared to have an event strategy for your crypto event or for your crypto project. Now, not everything needs events, but a lot of projects do. And the bigger project, maybe you need brand recognition, maybe you need deal flow, maybe you need users, depending on how you want to do it. You want to get people to talk about your project and get them interested and excited. And of course, there's marketing on Twitter. Twitter is a very, very popular way to do it. Marketing through Telegram by opening Telegram channels and having a very fun Telegram channel. Discord is another way that people do it. And there's also, like and share campaigns using products like Galaxy that use airdrops where the user is getting paid in your token and Galaxy token to be to engage with that tweet or whatever. And then there's everything. There's podcasts. There's everything under the sun that you can think of. And then, of course, it depends on the strategy and your go-to-market that you're choosing. And it also depends on what your product is. If you're still very technical, it's very infrastructure, and you are what we call a professor coin, maybe what you want to do is you want to take a strategy that's actually focused very much on research and academia, and you want to target the correct events that are very research focused, and you want to have those premier talk slots in research heavy places. But it all really depends, and there's more to it than that. So yeah, this is what I do. I do this for projects, and it certainly takes a lot of thinking around it, and it starts with actually understanding specifically why and what and how and who you are, and all of those questions about the bare metal technology that you're creating. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yes, yeah. Sorry about that. I am. So I said that's definitely a lot. It sounds like step one, you have to be in the crypto space first. You have to understand the ecosystem before you get to building a product. So it's more market driven. So you understand what problems exist, how users react, how they behave before you go ahead to build anything. Is that
Because
is that
it's
what
not.
I'm hearing?
Yes, but it's because it's not like anything, um, that has come before it. It's not.
Um,
It's not academia. It's not. It didn't come from academia. It didn't come from industry. It didn't come from government. It didn't come from any of that. It came from hackers in basements, and on forums, getting together and like like 2009 is when Bitcoin came out. So let's just say 2010. How crazy do you have to be to think, "Oh, wow, I get it. Money's not real, so that means we can create money by just enough people believing, and then there's money, and if it's hard because of its the math and the proof of work behind that." That's a very basic,
no.
simple idea, at this for these days, Nakamoto consensus. But
Mhm.
the um, you have to be neurodivergent in order to really get that. So that is, the people that know their stuff, the people that have been in the space for a long time, that you are competing with, that have way
Mhm.
more experience than you, are like that. So that is the
Uh-huh.
nature of the space. And so
Yeah.
if you come at it and say, "Oh, it's just like another industry, it's just a consumer industry, it's like video gaming," then you're going to probably lose. And that's the and because you need to be willing to accept that it is still a gray market. It is not a regular industry, and you have to learn to be careful. You have to learn that not everyone is there to be your friend. It can be a dangerous industry, but at the same time, it can be a very fun industry. So I'm never leaving, but it's definitely not for the faint of heart. And if you don't have any experience in the industry or in the space, then the question is are you going to still be there when your project fails? Because are you just looking for a quick win? If you're looking for a quick win, then sure, you might get a quick win in crypto, but you're not going to make a sustainable product. And you're not really there. And then you're just going to be labeled as a scam artist because you're not there for the
Yeah.
long term.
Yeah, I can imagine this is a very, there's a stark contrast here as against building like a traditional product where you could just have an idea, you build something, and then there's a market for it. Probably you just validate it a bit and then you go to market. As against you having to be in a space, understand pros and cons that you will factor in during development. Because I've seen like there are a lot of like crypto scams, for instance, and you cannot just innocently develop a crypto product and then decide to go to market. You could get drained on day one, or you could
Yeah.
get like your project could fail on arrival. The
Yeah.
tolerance level in crypto seems to be a lot lower. Like there's zero
Yeah.
zero tolerance there.
And
So there's a lot of education is needed for
yeah,
oneself.
and if you look at, say, celebrity projects as a parallel to this, the ones
Hmm.
that are successful are the ones that actually know their stuff. They have done the research, and it's clear when they talk about stuff that they know what they're talking about. You can if you look at Iggy Azalea's Twitter at the moment, all she's talking about is Mother token, and all she's talking about is crypto and the parties that she threw and the crypto parties and all that. But if you actually look at what she's really talking about, oh, she has real product. She actually understands this DeFi stuff. She understands the market and she understands how this crypto stuff works because she's
Hmm.
probably been paying attention for a few years. Whereas if
Yeah.
there's these other celebrity projects, they're just there for a quick buck. They get on, they get an interview. They don't get on interviews because they don't understand the stuff and they get someone else to talk for them.
Yeah. That's true. I need to check her Twitter out for sure. Something that you mentioned that was very interesting to me is picking what components fit in your marketing strategy for a crypto product. It seems like it's heavily dependent on intent. Are you trying to get users? Are you trying to just drive general awareness? Are you trying to get people to sign up? Are you building a brand for it, or people to test it? Is it in academia? So it sort of depends on what your original intent is. So I guess that's also similar to like traditional marketing. But then I'm also curious, how do you know? So you've developed a marketing strategy with a specific intent and goals in mind. How do you know it works? Right? Is this a do you instrument like measurement bits before and then track them after, or how do you know it works? I just want
So
to get a sense of maybe if it's different or if it's the same as like traditional systems.
So it's different and the same. It's the same in that, like, when you're trying to measure brand, it's a very holistic way of measuring. You're measuring, oh, there was this many people that came to this event. They scanned the QR code this many times. They did this, and then we had all these events, and then so on aggregate, we spent this much. We we can assume that we have a relative cost per acquisition in a brand sense, which is still a very wishy-washy way of
Hmm.
doing it, of this. But at the same time, blockchain is transparent. And so you can literally track conversions, assuming that is what the marketing campaign it aligns to be able to do that. And so you can literally look at transaction history and be like, well, there is this much liquidity, or there's this much TVL, total value locked, or there
Hmm.
is these many people that interacted. Um, the downside is most people use Brave browser, so your typical tracking links don't work because no one uses browsers that allow you to track, or at least the people that are using Brave are your core audience.
Hmm.
And the people that aren't using Brave are maybe not your core audience, but are maybe
Hmm.
secondary or tertiary audiences. And
Yeah.
so you can't get the same kind of numerical value there. But in some cases, you can get very clear ROI, and you can track spend relative to that. Um, but so it's a little similar, but it's also very different.
Yeah. Hmm. That's interesting. First of all, I didn't know Brave browser was for folks, or at least it's been used by a lot of folks in the crypto space, and it's seemingly safe. That's what I hear. But at least
Yeah,
it's not. It's cookieless by default, or it's not.
yeah,
They don't
it's a
track like.
it's a crypto browser, and it specifically stops cookies, it stops tracking, it stops all of that. And it's very popular in the space. It's been in the space for a while. It has a built-in wallet as well if you want to use that. But I use my own wallets.
Oh, that's cool. So a lot of I've seen a lot of projects, crypto projects, from when I got in 2017 and got out in probably 2021 and 2022. A lot of projects have died in natural death. Some of them slowly, some just quickly on impact. What would you say is sort of like the contributing factor, or the major contributing factor to projects that just, they go on, they get initial traction, but then they're just, they're just going down and they're going slowly, and there's no picking up in sight. What would you say from your experience you've seen contribute to a lot of these?
So, I mean, the same could be said for the broader startup space. For
Hmm.
99 projects that come about for a particular technology, one project will succeed, like really succeed. And
Okay.
maybe 10 projects will do well enough. Um, and what happens is, say, a really big, interesting innovation that everyone's very excited about turns out to be actually a core protocol need that just needs to be built in regardless, and isn't necessarily a product itself. Um, or, because we're building the world computer here, so these are components in a larger system of microeconomic activity, and or foam, as you could call it. Um, and so it's just like these little pieces in a larger puzzle. Um, so what can contribute is maybe the team uh, lacked the crypto experience, and they didn't get the correct opportunities, or the project ran out of funding, or the project got hacked, and it lost mind share, or the liquidity dried up because the market dropped out, because we're still in a very volatile state. We're getting less and less volatile. Like the lows are much, much, much higher than the high than the lows of previous years. So the people that stay here you know, are actually are a lot more growing. So, we're going to probably reach mainstream adoption in like 5 years, is my guess.
Hmm.
Maybe 10 years at the most.
Hmm.
But uh, the the ebb and flow of these users, what was happening in 2021 and 2022 is these project ideas really worked in bull markets, but then the bear market started, and then liquidity started to drop, and TVL started to drop,
Hmm.
and then users left, and then it couldn't get restarted, and it doesn't work in a bear market. And so
Yeah.
projects that work in a bear market are going to be much more sustainable. So the projects that
Hmm.
have been successful have been decentralized exchanges. And that's a very basic thing in the context of everything. The things that haven't succeeded are more novel things that we do need, but maybe we don't have enough of the long-term users in order to support that in the ecosystem. So, for
Oh.
example, these DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, they're not startups, but they're organizations, and they're very popular, but they will be popular again. But the problem is when people get bored, they leave. And when you don't have something to rekindle the people during that user churn, it drops off. And so you
Hmm.
need to gain that hype again, and that's very difficult because people are always onto the new thing. So it's a very difficult problem. But I think in a few years, what's going to happen is you're just going to have enough existing users that stay, and the macro token price is not actually going to be as volatile. It's just going to be more generally going up. And then when that happens, then we're going to have users that actually, go from one project to the next project to the next project, and you're going to be able to fix that user churn problem.
Yeah, but it sounds like, but I just um, some piqued my interest when you talked about decentralized exchanges surviving. It feels like whatever happens in a gold mine, gold rush, whoever sells shovels, they survive, and everyone goes down, but they stay around for, like, till when the next mine is open, they still they still keep selling. And then I'm surprised that novelty, is usually one of the quickest to die down within these cycles. At least, do you feel like there's a component of a marketing strategy that contributes to this? Maybe if it was something that was done correctly in some way, it could sustain these projects, or at least keep them in a state of neutrality rather than just like plunging down slowly.
Well, if we look at the stuff that has survived, they have become core components or core tools of the everyday user, regardless of where the
Hmm.
market is. Uniswap, MetaMask, although there's now some competition in the wallet space, and there's some competition in the decentralized exchange space. Um,
Hmm.
and their brands are very catchy, their events are big, they have big names, and they're able to stay at a scaled uh, place. But they're also at a very different size than these other startups. They're not at the 0 to 1; they're at the 100 to 1,000. They're
Yeah.
looking at Series C's and D's. They're not they're not looking at seed and pre-seed. So it's still a matter of just startups. Um, to your point about selling shovels to the gold rush, and there are projects that are effectively that. But even then, the ones that are very successful are still around. They're still making tons of money, but their name isn't as popular these days because they were more of a 2017 project, and they don't have
Mm.
that novel cachet that projects say today have. Something that you could do is, maybe you spin up another project entirely that's funded by the main project. Um, you just don't have any that no one really knows if that's the case. And then you leverage the two. Like that's something that you could do, but you have to be a project that has done very well. Um, but why do you need to do that all at all if you're a project like Uniswap when you're going to be there for a long time?
Hmm.
So the question is, how do you continue providing revenue and growth to get to the size of an IPO, even though it's going to be these are crypto projects and they may not actually IPO,
Yeah.
because they're like, look at Uniswap, it might IPO, but it's a decentralized exchange. There is a company that builds it, but if the company goes away, the exchange still exists.
Hmm.
And so, it has a token, and that is what is tied to the success or failure of the project itself. Um, so, there's probably like a handful of big projects that are still around from 2017, and there's another handful of projects that are still around from the last cycle. There are very few projects that are around from 2013 and on, but Tether is from, that era with sort of.
Hmm.
And they are arguably the biggest crypto company in the entire space, with over 100 and issued over like 142 billion US dollars worth of stable coin holding the equivalent of that in US Treasuries. So there's different stages of these companies, but all of them are core needs for the ecosystem to survive. But what we haven't seen yet is a core, um, like video game platforms have the system seller, right?
Hmm.
Xbox had Halo. We still haven't had that moment in crypto. We thought we had it with DeFi, but turns out DeFi, decentralized finance,
Hmm.
being able to do these types of uh, crypto economic interactions on chain, um, that are very different than, say, traditional finance. Um, these turned out to be features that were needed for core protocols. And so a lot of these projects ended up dying, and some of them are still around, but no one really cares. And so they kind of just like languish, or they just, chug along and they do their thing. Um, but what is the thing that is going to really have the moment, and obviously there's always attention on crypto. It ebbs and
Hmm.
flows. Bitcoin is a big thing. Ethereum is a big thing. Solana is a big thing. But those are, core technologies. We still haven't had that consumer facing product that really gets people to need crypto,
Hmm.
outside of, say, industrial uses or for financial uses. That could be a social product, and we've seen a lot of SocialFi projects come about in the last year, and some have been we've seen little successes here and there. I advise SocialFi project, Sound Money on Bitcoin, um, but you know to answer that core question is a very hard thing, because it's like the early days of the internet, and it's still
Hmm.
inherently a startup space where most projects will fail.
That's interesting. What I hear is that at least at the basis, the product itself has to be great, regardless of what the marketing strategy is. If the product is in need, then it has a very high chance of survival,
Yeah,
with or without like some great marketing strategy. Obviously, marketing strategy is great, but um, the
it's
product has to be inherently good.
it's not just solve a need that people want, it's solve a need that enough people want, that can
Yeah.
survive um, uh, volatile market fluctuations. And
Hmm.
that is an even harder
Yeah.
problem than just
Yeah.
solving something that people need.
Yeah, that people need. That's interesting. Thanks for that. Something I'm curious about is I know the crypto space is very event and community heavy. I've been in a couple of like crypto communities, and it's always like wow, there's a lot of activity there, and it's very difficult to replicate such activity in traditional companies, even though they build maybe developer products or they build consumer products that they want to try a community led approach to it. So I'm curious, what makes it great? Like, what makes a crypto community tick? Like, what drives engagement? Is it the reward system, the technology? In your opinion, what makes a community tick?
Crypto came from the underground. Like, you can't
Okay.
replicate that. You know, it came from hacker spaces. It came from basements. It came from like people, like developers, and engineers, they code really hard on their product, and they ship this amazing research paper, and then they go to their rave the next night, or that night. You know what I mean? Like, you can't
Hmm.
replicate that unless you are willing to, like, let go of your business facade of and your professional, and like professionalism. There, I am still professional in crypto,
Hmm.
and I am professional outside of crypto, but there is still a willingness to be, you know, more real, be yourself. It is, um, there's not the office culture. It's even more different than, say, startup culture, where it's like, oh, you can wear your hoodie in the office. Like, that's awesome. But it's more, um, It's more
Radical.
fundamental. It's radical. It's more fundamental than that. That's not to say that companies couldn't do that if they didn't want to, but they have to be
Hmm.
very willing to go there and be willing to be open about that stuff, and also to have the boundaries for that to not get too far and be in um a situation that is not good and is not conductive of proper decorum in an office. There needs to be lines, but how do you replicate that? You have to be like willing to go there. So I think when you have these companies in enterprise that are able to start these open source communities, like those are really impressive to me. That's amazing, and the crypto community has a lot of respect for those communities, because they're able to sustain themselves, and people are really interested in the tech, and but that is still very much like an organization supports this horizontal community, and there's a symbiotic relationship. Sometimes, not
Hmm.
all the time. Sometimes it's a parasitic relationship, and when it's a symbiotic relationship, then it's good. In crypto, that is flattened in that there is the core protocol and then all the projects and companies and communities. It's all intermixed all together. It's a
Hmm.
crypto economic, microeconomic foam of activity. So that's a very different paradigm. Um, and so, do you want to necessarily replicate that? Maybe, maybe not. But I think uh, if you wanna bring a little bit of that in there, you have to be willing to, um, not be so stuffy, I think is at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. This is golden. Like, at least remove the professionalism, because it
I
doesn't
didn't
seem
I
to
didn't say that.
thrive.
I didn't say that. Keep the
Okay.
professionalism, keep the professionalism, um,
Okay.
but remove the stuffiness,
Okay.
like, um,
What
be
is the
willing
stuffiness?
so be willing to you go out for, a drink afterwards, like a networking event. Um,
Hmm.
don't make people pay for those drinks at the networking event. You should be paying for those drinks at the networking event because you want people to be there. And then from there, maybe you want to put on like an event later. In crypto, that's typically means that there's a rave. Um, I don't know if that's going to work in other industries, but that is what works as a market in the marketing space in crypto. Coinbase, which is an
Hmm.
enormous company, will rent out an entire club, and they'll have a developer event, they'll have an engineering event, a research event, a VC network event, and a big club. And that's a part of their entire marketing strategy for the week. And then they have a big booth at the main event, and they get all of the inbound to come and talk to them about their chain called Base.
Yeah.
It works because they can hit on all points: fun and entertainment and education and camaraderie.
Yeah. That's that's interesting. So, still professional, but it's just a different vibe. It's a more casual vibe, you would say. So it's
Yeah.
not like stuck up, being very like, this is our community, or this is our community and you are members of our community. Sort of,
Yeah.
it's like we are the community. That's what I hear. I love the example of like a hierarchy where, with normal communities at startups, is there's like the company, and there are community members that are getting something from the community, and that's it. So it's a sort of like one-way flow. Or the company is, or rather, it's a one-way flow from the community members to the company. The company is getting feedback from the community, and it's basically almost like harvesting the community for like insights, and whatever else, engagement, having those numbers to show in like board meetings. Whereas in the crypto space, it's we all are the community, contributors,
Exactly.
builders, creators,
Exactly.
everyone. It's
And if
Yeah.
you
So
aren't
there
willing to
isn't like
spend
a
marketing
leader.
dollars, if you aren't willing to spend
Hmm.
marketing dollars on community events or community situations, or maybe there's fund public development for some open source projects. If you're not willing to spend some
Hmm.
money doing that, you are not. People talk about it, and you can get like your project can suffer because you get this recognition that like, oh, they don't contribute to the community. So there's
Oh.
that side to it as well. There's public
Mm-hmm.
funding and grants to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you have
Okay.
that ecosystem of there, and it's to the point now where enterprises before they were trying to like, well, let's take Bitcoin or blockchain without crypto. That lost, and now they're coming back into blockchain and they're funding blockchain crypto teams, and these are people
Mm-hmm.
from the space that actually are understand the space and are building real technology to be a part of it, and they're not trying to enterprise bring an enterprise vibe to crypto, rather the other way around. They're trying to be the other way around. Vanek, an enormous fund off Wall Street, been around for 63 years. Its entire
Mm-hmm.
Twitter personality is full crypto style. You know, it has an attitude, it has a character, it's engaging with other projects, um, it's funny, and it's all because they're just trying to sell their Bitcoin and their Bitcoin ETF. But
Mm-hmm.
still, it's like their entire Twitter that represents um, Vanek is dedicated to this. And
Yeah.
it's because they are willing to let their defenses down and be like us, not try and
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
us.
Wow. That's amazing. What breaks an event? So you've done a lot of these. What makes a bad event from your
I
experience?
have to pay for my drink. It's a bad event.
It sounds, from what I hear so far, I've heard like funds, paying for stuff, airdrops. It sounds like, I mean, cryptocurrency. It sounds like there's a lot of currency moving about, and a lot of like things, activities, marketing is based on the financial bits. And this is like spread around. So does this mean that projects have to be rich, or they have to like at least have money before they can succeed?
I actually think some of my best work has been when I had no budget. Um,
Okay.
so it's about having the attitude. It's and understanding the space. I've been able to market and get results with a Telegram channel and no budget. And maybe I throw $1,000 towards a small crypto event, um, and that's it. You know, that's a really small budget.
Yeah.
But it's about and that but I'm taking a word of mouth strategy. You know,
Okay.
you don't need to have money to be able to get there. Sure, it helps, and if you know how to leverage that, you can have a lot of money and not know how to leverage the project, and it dies, and it's a waste of
Okay.
money. But from but if you do have a lot of money and you do know how to leverage it, then look at Barachain, the way that they do their marketing. They do a lot of they've been in the crypto space for a long time before they did the project. It was a meme project
Mhm.
first, and then it turned into an actual like real tech. But they did stuff like doing drone shows to announce a partnership with some huge company, or they did um, or they're doing just all sorts of stuff. If you look at their Twitter, it's really really interesting. They do these marketing stunts, but they can afford it because
Mhm.
they have a ton of funding. But you don't
Yeah.
need to have a ton of funding to get the results. You just have to understand the space. And ideally, it helps more to have the network than it does to have the funding. Funding helps if you don't have network, but if you have the network,
Mhm.
you can get really far and be able to
Yeah.
do a lot, which is again, part of the reason why you need to have someone on board who's been in the space a long time,
Mhm.
because they can provide that network and make those connections, and actually make the decisions and be like, this makes sense to do, this does not make sense to do. Let's spend money here and not here and nowhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like step one, get in the space, get embedded in the
Yeah.
space. Step two, build a network. Like while you're in the space, build a network. And then three, build a great product. Then you build a good product. And then lastly, you can seek for like funding and a lot more funding to do even more good stuff.
Build a great
Um,
product
and
that can survive multiple cycles. Yeah, that a lot of people
yes,
want.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Build a great product that a lot of people want, not just some people want.
yeah.
That makes a whole lot of sense. I love to close with globalization, right? This is something I know a lot of traditional startups struggle with. So they build the product, um, and they are looking at users. Typically, they'd get users from one region, and then they're looking at, oh, we want to build a truly global product, right? How do we go beyond like the the country where the founder is? The founder already has a network. So how do you approach that in crypto? How do you get everyone from around the world to talk about it or to
It's
be a part of it?
it starts global. It fundamentally
Okay.
starts global, not local. You can do some events locally, sure, but it starts global, and then you might end up having communities in Turkey, and then you might have end up having communities over here and over there, and they are part of your core community, and then you participate in these communities because they're more research oriented in these communities, or these communities are more token price oriented, and you participate in there for venture funding. Or you spend time in San Francisco and the Bay Area because you want to you want to raise capital, or New York or whatever because of Wall Street. Everywhere has their pluses and minuses,
Hmm.
and offshore banking plays a part in crypto as well. But in crypto, it just starts global. First of all, when you take it to market, you are taking it global, and then um, where it start. You're not like, this is my TAM in this country, and then I'm going to expand to this country, and then I'm going to expand to that country. You can take a strategy like that if you want to, from a community growth standpoint. That makes sense to me. But that is part of a larger global plan. That is not part of we're just going to focus on this country and this country alone for a while. That doesn't happen. Um, Unless you're and the only exception to the rule is a company in crypto, and there's very few of these, that want all of their team in one particular city or another city. um Typically these are global first companies. So when the pandemic hit, nothing changed in crypto.
Yeah. Huh.
So
That makes
to
sense. I
answer
like the idea of global first.
yeah, so to answer your question, I there isn't really a what can you do. It's, well,
Hmm.
this is what you're doing, how do you leverage that at what time?
Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much. I like the idea of again, taking a global first approach from day one. From launch is, yeah, it's global. Pockets of communities could form in specific regions, but mentally you're going at the world rather than focusing on one region over another. That's what I hear, right? That's great. Thank you so much, Jan. I see we are like bit over time. I'm sorry for taking like all that time. I just got carried away with the conversation, but thank you so much. This has been great. If anyone wants to find you, ask you any more questions about all these, we didn't get a lot of time to talk about Covalent and what you do, but please go check out. If you're listening to this, go check out covalenthq.com. It's got like a really beautiful website. I've been drooling over it all afternoon. Um, and I guess the best way to find you, Jan, is on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn or Twitter or Telegram. I will post in if you access this through LinkedIn, I'll post in the
Mhm.
comments how to get in contact with me.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Jan. Any final words to anyone listening?
Um, Crypto is inevitable. So, eventually you're going to have to think about how does your product work with the crypto space. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's great. And long live Ethereum then.
Yeah, long live Ethereum. Thank you
Yeah,
so
all right.
much.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day to the listeners then.
Have a good one.